Hey, Shalom, Israel, Shalom.
Shalom.
Hey, we're back. We're gonna do a video. This is in reference to the Feast of Tabernacles, being that tomorrow actually is the Feast of Tabernacles. Um, so I wanted to do a quick video to give some understanding on the Feast of Tabernacles. I'm seeing a lot more people keeping the true Sabbath of the Most High, going by the calendar that He gave us in the first week of creation, which is Genesis 1 and 14. But I just wanted to do some a quick video and get some more understanding on the Feast of Tabernacles and show that it can only be done on the calendar of the Most High. It cannot be done on a Gregorian man-made calendar or any calendar for that case. It has to be done on the calendar of the Most High. So our foundational scripture, as always, is 1 Thessalonians 5 and 21. And it says, prove all things, hold fast that which is good. So we're going to go into scripture and we're going to prove according to scripture how you keep the Feast of Tabernacles, and that is only can be done according to his calendar. So let me get let's start at Genesis 1, verse 14 and 15 real quick. Yeah.
Genesis chapter 1, verse 14.
Yeah.
And it reads, and Yahweh said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Verse 15, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and it was so.
So verse 15 says, and let them be lights in the firmament of heaven. So the Most High created the sun, moon, and the stars, but he created them for much more of a purpose than just to have lights in the firmament. Verse 14 says, and Yahweh said, let there be lights in the firmament to divide the day from the night. So the luminaries divide the day from the night. The sun governs the day, which is the greater light who rules the day, and the moon, the lesser light, rules the night. So he divided it 12 hours of light that he called day and 12 hours of darkness that he called night, right? And it also goes on and says for signs. So the luminaries in the firmament are signs if you know what they're saying, right? It also says for seasons and for days and for years. Can you get that Strong's Concordance for seasons to me? And it says for seasons and for days and for years. Now the sun and the stars bring in the year completely at 364 days in a complete biblical year. So that's what that's talking about. But this season right here is not talking about season as far as weather. It's talking about something totally different. Go ahead, give me that.
Seasons, Strong's 4150, Moedim, appointed place, appointed time, meeting, appointed time, appointed or sacred season, set feast.
Seasons is Moedim 4150. It means appointed times. It also means feast. Feast and seasons also is the same thing, 4150 Moedim. So it says it's for appointed times. So the appointed times are all of the feast days listed in Leviticus 23, right? So AR, give me Psalms 19, verse 1 through 3. Because the luminaries are in the firmament and they're saying something every day. Every day the sun comes up, he's saying something. Every day the moon comes up, she's saying something. So it's not dependent upon if we understand what they're saying or not. They're saying what they're saying regardless to if we understand it or not. Just like if you don't speak Spanish or you don't speak Russian or you don't speak Chinese, if somebody is saying something, they're saying it regardless to the fact if you understand it or not, right? Go ahead, give me that song.
Psalms chapter 19, starting at verse 1, and it reads, the heavens declare the glory of Yahweh, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Verse 2, day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. Verse 3.
Verse 3,
Verse 3, there is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard.
So it says there's no speech or no language where voice is not heard. So, like I said, they're saying something regardless if we understand it or not. So every night, every day that the verse 2 says, day unto day utter a speech. So every day that the sun rises, he's saying something. He's starting the biblical day. A day starts in the morning at dawn at the rising of the sun. It says night unto night show of knowledge. So every night that the moon comes up, she's showing knowledge. The thing is, we have to understand what that knowledge is, what the sign is, right? Hey, can you give me the definition for sign? Because it says the heavens declare the glory of Yahuwah, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. So this is the handiwork of the Most High. He created these things for a specific purpose, right? You have that
Mhm.
definition?
Definition for sign: sign, an object, quality, or event whose presence or occurrence indicates the probable presence or occurrence of something else.
So the presence of the sun is saying that when you see the sun, is his presence is making a statement. He's saying something. When you see the moon, she's saying something. So the presence of her being there, she's saying something. And we have to figure out what they're saying, right? We have to go back to the old path, right? So let's go back to Genesis 1 and verse 14. Um, Pick that up again, up.
Okay, Genesis chapter 1, verse 14. And Yahweh said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Verse 15. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so.
So this is the calendar of the Most High. Hey, can you give me Psalms 104 and verse 19? So this is the calendar of the Most High. And like I said, we have to understand what they're saying, right? So the Most High gave us his calendar the first week, right? And he said the definition for seasons is 4150 Moedim, right? So this is
Mhm.
can you give me that precept out?
Psalms chapter 104, verse 19. And it reads, he appointed the moon for seasons, and the sun knoweth his going down.
So it says he appointed the moon, meaning that he created the moon for seasons. That season there is appointed times, and all of the appointed times are listed in Leviticus 23, right? Can you give me Ezekiel 46 and verse 1? Because we have to understand that's his calendar. Secondly, we have to understand that there's three types of days on the Most High's calendar. Just like there's three types of days on the Gregorian calendar, you have weekdays, weekends, and federal holidays. But all of those three types of days have nothing to do with the days of the Most High. That has nothing to do with his feast time, his feast days. It has nothing to do with the Most High, period. Those are Gregorian man-made days that have nothing to do with the Most High. He has specific days on his calendar that must be followed. You had that?
Yes, Ezekiel chapter 46, verse 1. It said, thus, and it reads, thus saith Yahweh Elohim, the gate of the inner court that looketh toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be opened, and in the day of the new moon it shall be opened.
So the calendar of the Most High, he has three types of days. He has New Moon Day being the first day of every month, every year, and it's followed by 6 working days, and then you have the seventh day Sabbath. So those are the three types of days that are on the Most High's calendar. The next thing we have to understand is that there's also two types of Sabbaths, right? Because you have your regular weekly Sabbath and you have the Sabbath, which is called solemn assemblies. But the thing is, either it doesn't matter if it's a regular weekly Sabbath or if it's a solemn assembly. All Sabbaths are the same dates every month, every year, regardless. And all of the dates coincide with the moon phases, right? The dates of the Sabbaths are 8, 15, 22, and 29 every year, all the time. It does not matter. The only thing that distinguishes whether it's a solemn feast day or a regular feast day is whatever month that we're dealing with. So we're in the 7th month. So the 15th day of this month would be a solemn assembly, right? If it was the month prior, which was the 6th month, the 15th day, it would be a regular weekly Sabbath because it's not a high Sabbath, right? It would be a regular weekly Sabbath, but regardless of that, it would be the same date every month, regardless. Can you give me Hosea 2, verse 11 up? So we can show the two types of Sabbaths here.
Hosea chapter 2, verse 11. And it reads, I will also cause all her mirth to cease, her feast days, her new moons, and her Sabbaths, and all her solemn feasts.
Here, Hosea 2 and 11, it mentioned the new moon days, and it also mentioned Sabbath, meaning your weekly Sabbath, and it mentioned your solemn assemblies, right? AR, can you give me Deuteronomy 16:16? But it mentioned weekly Sabbath, and it also mentions solemn assemblies, right? So solemn assemblies are, which would be called high Sabbaths, right? So it's certain Sabbaths that happen on specific months, which would distinguish them from being a regular weekly Sabbath opposed to being a solemn assembly, right? So Hosea 2 and 11 tells us there's new moon days and there's two types of Sabbaths here. We went into Ezekiel 46 verse 1, and the Most High's calendar deals with three types of days. New moon day being the first day of the month, followed by 6 work days, and then you have the weekly Sabbath. Go ahead and pull it, grab that Deuteronomy 16:16 up.
Deuteronomy chapter 16, starting at verse 16. And it reads, 3 times in a year shall all the males appear before Yahweh thy Elohim in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before Yahweh empty.
So right here, this is talking about 3 feasts in a year. It says, first of all, it's talking about Feast of Unleavened Bread. It's talking about Feast of Weeks, or that would be Pentecost. And it's also talking about Feast of Tabernacles, the feast that we're discussing tonight. So these are 3 solemn assemblies, right? And like I said, regardless to the month, whatever month it is, depends on if it's a solemn assembly opposed to being a regular weekly Sabbath. But regardless, all of the Sabbaths are always the same days and coincide with the moon phases, 8, 15, 22, and 29, right? And so what you also have to understand is that we'll quote all of the curses in Deuteronomy 28, but we fail to realize, just like Hosea 2 and 11 said, because of sin, the Most High caused us to forget the new moons. He caused us to forget the regular weekly Sabbath as well as the solemn assemblies. That's why when you go to Exodus 20 and verse 8, it says, remember the Sabbath, because we have to go back to the old path, to the way that our forefathers and foremothers kept the feast days, the weekly Sabbath as well as the solemn assemblies, right? So we have to go back to the path of that. Can you give me Psalms 89 and verse 37? Because like I said, regardless to us knowing what the moon is saying or knowing what the sun is saying, like we read in Psalm, it said day unto day, he uttereth speech, and night unto night, she brings forth knowledge. So they're saying something regardless, but we have to go back to know exactly what they're saying. But the Most High gave us the moon specifically to track our feast days, to include the weekly Sabbath, right? And go ahead and give me that precept, Bob.
Psalms chapter 89, verse 37, and it reads, it shall be established forever as the moon and as a faithful witness in heaven.
So it says it should be established faithfully as a witness forever. The moon is a faithful witness forever. So regardless to us knowing what the moon is saying, what she's saying every night or not, she's faithful at what she's doing. Hey, can you give me Baruch 6 and 60? She's faithful to do what she's doing, right? She's coming up. Both the sun and the moon rise in the east and set in the west. So they're coming up every day and going down every night, and they're saying something, right? And it says that she's a faithful witness in heaven forever, right? Go ahead.
Baruch chapter 6, verse 60, and it reads, for sun, moon, and stars being bright and sent to do their offices are obedient.
So they're obedient to what they were created to do. So when we see that the moon is coming up, she's saying something, right? All right, let's pick this up at Sirach 43 verse 6. The only way to keep the feast days is by the luminaries, which the Most High created for us to do so. Sirach 43 and verse 6.
Okay, Sirach 43, verse 6, and it reads, He made the moon also to serve in her seasons for a declaration of times and a sign of the world.
Just like Psalms 80, Psalms 19, 10, Psalms 119, what is it, Psalm 119, 104? Psalms 104:19, I'm sorry. Just like Psalms 119, 104, verse 19 says that he made the moon for seasons. Now, right here in Sirach 43, verse 6, it says again, he made the moon to serve in her season. That season is the 4150 is Moedim. It said for a declaration or an announcement. So every time the moon comes up, she's announcing something. She's speaking, she's saying something, right? And it says, and a sign of the world. So the moon is a sign, just like it said in Genesis 1:14, a sign. So a sign is something that's an identifying feature. It's something that you see and you automatically know exactly what it is. Like if you go to Burger King, you see the sign at Burger King, you know that's Burger King opposed to McDonald's with the golden arches. So it's a sign and it tells you exactly what it is. So the moon is saying something, she's a sign every time she comes up, right? Give me verse 7 up.
Verse 7, Sirach chapter 43, verse 7, and it reads, From the moon is a sign of feast, a light that decreaseth in her perfection.
So we all agree that this verse here is specifically talking about the full moon, right? We know Sirach 39 and verse 12 says that the perfection of the moon is the fullness. So we know that this is the full moon, right? So it says from the moon is a sign of feast. So it's a sign of feast. So the moon determines all feast days to include the weekly Sabbath as well as your solemn assemblies, which we already showed in Hosea 2 and 11 is two types of Sabbaths, weekly Sabbaths and solemn assembly. So it says right here, from the moon is a sign of feast. So let's pick it up real quick and show what the first feast is that the moon is a sign of. Leviticus 23, and we'll go to verse 1 through 3. Then we're going to go straight to show that tabernacle also is done. It can only be done by the level. So Leviticus 23, verse 1 through 3.
Leviticus chapter 23, starting at verse 1, and it reads, And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, concerning the feast of Yahweh, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feast. Keep reading.
Verse 3.
Verse 3, 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of rest and holy convocation. Ye shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of Yahweh. It is the Sabbath of Yahweh in all your dwellings.
So Sirach 43, verse 7 says, From the moon is a sign of feast, an identifying feature. So the first feast listed in Leviticus 23, where all the feasts are listed, is the weekly Sabbath, right? And we've already shown that there's weekly Sabbaths and solemn assemblies, right? So, AR, can you give me that the approximate time that it takes from the crescent, which is the new moon, to the full moon? I sent that to you, number 5, brother.
The first visible moon phase is the thin sliver of a waxing crescent moon. Around a week later, half of the moon's surface is illuminated at first quarter moon. The illuminated part continues to grow into a waxing gibbous moon until 14 to 15 days into the cycle. We see the entire face of the moon lit up at the full.
So right here it's telling you it takes 15 days to go from the crescent, which is the new moon, until the full moon, which is the 15th day. And like I said, all of this, the moon phases coincide with the date. So it said the first Sabbath is the first quarter moon. The second Sabbath would be the 15th, which is the full moon. The third Sabbath, which would be the last quarter phase. and the last Sabbath of the month is the crescent on the opposite end. So those are your 4 Sabbaths in the biblical month, along with the moon phases that they coincide with. So it says, so the first feast day listed in Leviticus 23 is your weekly Sabbath, right? That's your weekly Sabbath. Now let's go to the solemn assembly. Let's pick it up at verse 34.
Leviticus chapter 23, verse 34, and it reads, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, The 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto Yahweh.
So it says right here, the 15th day of the 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto Yahweh. So like I said, tomorrow is the Feast of Tabernacles. This is the 7th month. This is the 14th day that we're doing this video. Tomorrow in the morning at dawn starts the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles. So it says that it should be a feast for 7 days unto Yahweh, right? Go ahead and pick it up, verse 35 out.
Verse 35, and it reads, On the first day shall be an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein.
So the first day is of the Feast of Tabernacles, which lasts for 7 days, is the 15th. And it says that the first day is a Sabbath. Now, this is a solemn assembly, like we read in Deuteronomy 16:16, that they went up 3 times in a year for the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Pentecost, and also for the Feast of Tabernacles. Those are your 3 solemn assemblies. So right here, the moon, Sirach 43, verse 7 said, From the moon is a sign of feast. The first feast we went to in Leviticus 23 was your weekly Sabbath. Now we're at a solemn assembly, which is the 15th day, and it says that it is a Sabbath. So this is proving that the moon, just like it says in Psalms 104:19, he made the moon for seasons, meaning the appointed times. So now this is saying that the 15th day is a Sabbath as well, right? Go ahead and pick it up, verse 36.
Verse 36, Leviticus 23, verse 36, and it reads, 7 days ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. On the 8th day shall be an holy convocation unto you, and ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. It is a solemn assembly, and ye shall do no servile work.
It is a what?
It is a solemn assembly, and ye shall do no servile work therein.
It is a solemn assembly, just like it says in Deuteronomy 16:16. But the top of this says, 7 days you shall offer offering made by fire unto Yahweh. So the first day of Feast of Tabernacles is the 15th, and it's a feast for 7 days, right? So the first day of your count for your 7 days starts on the 15th. So let me show you this on this board right here. Make sure you can see this. So like we said, new moon day is your day on the 3 days, Ezekiel 46, verse 1. You have new moon days, you have 6 work days, and you have your Sabbath days. So your count must start from new moon day, being numerically day 1. From that, just like Exodus 20, verse 9 and 10 says, 6 days did I labor and do all our work, and the 7th is a day of rest. So from new moon day, the very next day, which starts in the morning, is the first of your 6 work days. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days of that work, and the 7th is a day of rest. But numerically, because your count starts at new moon day being day 1, the first Sabbath is the 8th day, and it coincides with the first quarter moon. The very next day, which starts in the morning, starts your work days again. 6 work days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days of that work, and the 7th is a day of rest. The second Sabbath is the 15th day. Can you hold what you got there? Grab Luke 6 and verse 1, because it says 6 days did I labor and do all our work, and the 7th is a day of rest. So even up here, this is the 7th day, but numerically it's the 8th day. Because if you not look at new moon day, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days that I work, and the 7th is a day of rest. The Sabbath is the 7th day, but your count must start from new moon day. You cannot start there and then forget about that day and count. You have to start there. So after this, your Sabbath, the very next day, starts your 6 days again, and you go to here. Read what you got, Luke 6 and verse 1 on.
Luke chapter 6, verse 1, and it reads, And it came to pass on the second Sabbath after the first, that he went through the cornfields, and his disciples plucked the ears of corn and did eat, rubbing them in their hands.
So the second Sabbath after the first is the 15th day. So that's what we just showed here. All right, let's pick this up at verse 39.
Okay, Leviticus chapter 23, verse 39, and it reads, Also in the 15th day of the seventh month, when ye have gathered in the fruit of the land, ye shall keep a feast unto Yahweh 7 days. On the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath.
So again, it's saying the first day and the 8th day shall be a Sabbath. And I want to make 2 points with this because, again, it says the 15th is the first day, right? 15th, and it's a feast for 7 days. So the 15th is the first day of your feast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's your 7th day of your feast day, right? And the 8th day shall be a Sabbath. Well, numerically, the 8th day is the 22nd, which the moon phase coincides with the last quarter moon, right? So it says to keep the feast for 7 days. So the first night that we sleep in the tent is the 15th. We sleep in there the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, and the 7th day is the 21st day. But it's also the 6th work day, the 6th day of the work week, which is also a prep day for the next Sabbath, which is the next day. Remember, Exodus 20, verse 9 and 10 says, 6 days do thou labor and do all our work, and the 7th is a day of rest. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days do thou labor and do all our rest, and the 7th is a day of rest. So the 21st is the last day, the 7th day of the Feast of Tabernacles, but it is also the 6th work day of the week. So just like you have a prep day, which is today, the 14th is the 6th day of the work week, and this is a prep day. Tomorrow in the morning starts your Shabbat. You get here on the 7th day. Now from here, the 15th day, you cannot cook. From the 16th all the way to the 21st, you can cook every day, all day. But you have to prepare on the 21st for the 22nd, which is the 8th day. Numerically, it's the 22nd day of the month.
On.
Right? So another thing what I want to say too is because I see some camps and they try to impose the Gregorian calendar on the calendar of the Most High, which we already showed the 3 types of days: new moon day, 6 work days, and the Sabbath day. Now they'll try to say that 7th day right there, they'll try to say that that's the Saturday Sabbath. That is absolutely a false doctrine.
Incorrect.
Just like Exodus 20 says, 9 and 10 says, 6 days without labor and do all our work, and the 7th is a day of rest. So you cannot have a Sabbath here on the 7th day and then turn around the next day and have a Sabbath. That is totally against scripture. It says, 6 days do thou labor and do all our work, and the 7th is a day of rest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days do thou labor, and the 7th is a day of rest. So this proves 2 things. You cannot use the Gregorian calendar to keep any days of the Most High. And it also proves again that Saturday is not the Sabbath of the Most High. There is no such thing as a double Sabbath. If it was a such thing as a double Sabbath, it would say it in scripture. And just like in Exodus 16, you prep day, bake what you bake, boil what you boil, and that which remaineth up, let it lay over until the Sabbath. Lay over until the Sabbath. You have to have 6 work days before a biblical Sabbath. So let me just show this real quick. Go to Numbers 29, and we'll show this real quick. And close out with this. Numbers 29, get up at verse.
We start at verse 17.
Numbers 29, verse 12 out.
Verse 12, Numbers 29.
Because we're going to show that numerically, if the next day after Tabernacle, if the Tabernacle is the 15th, the next day chronologically has to be the second day, and it has to be the 16th day. So go ahead and pick that up, verse 12. We're going to jump around real quick.
Okay, this is Numbers chapter 29, verse 12, and it reads, "And on the 15th day of the 7th month ye shall have an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work, and ye shall keep the feast unto Yahweh 7 days."
So the 15th day is the first day, right? Drop down to verse 17, huh?
Verse 17, and it reads, "And on the second day ye
That would be
shall,"
the that would be the 16th. Go over to verse 20, huh?
verse 20, and it reads, "And on the third day,"
That would be the 17th. Drop down to verse 23, huh?
verse 23, it says, "And on the fourth day,"
That would be the 18th day. Drop down to verse 26, huh?
verse 26 reads, "And on the fifth day,"
That would be the 19th day. Drop down to verse 29.
verse 29 reads, "And on the sixth day,"
And on the 6th day, that would be the 20th day. Drop down to verse 32, huh?
verse 32 reads, "And on the seventh day,"
And on the 7th day, 7 bullocks and 2 rams and 14 lambs of the first year without blemish. Right here, the 7th day. If verse 20, read verse 29 again, huh?
verse uh verse 12,
29.
verse 29, I'm sorry, "And on the sixth day,"
That would be the 20th. So the 7th day would have to be the 21st day, which is the 6th day of the work week, which is a prep day. Nowhere in scripture does it say the 7th day is a Sabbath. Nowhere in scripture does it say that the 7th day is Saturday. That is a false doctrine. Drop down to verse 35, huh?
verse 35, and it reads, "And on the eighth day ye shall have a solemn assembly, ye shall do no servile work therein."
So the 8th day would be the 22nd day. Go back to Leviticus 23 and verse 39 again, and then we'll close out with Proverbs 30 and 6.
Leviticus 26, verse, I mean,
Leviticus 23,
Leviticus 23, and you said verse 39?
verse 39.
Leviticus chapter 23, verse 39, and it reads, "Also in the 15th day of the 7th month, when ye have gathered in the fruit of the land, ye shall keep a feast unto Yahweh 7 days. On the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath."
So the first day is the Sabbath, which is the 15th day. We keep the feast for 7 days. For 7 days, we dwell in booths from the 15th to the 21st. The 21st day being the last day that we dwell in booths, also being the 6th day, which is the prep day for the Sabbath, which is the 8th day, which numerically is the 22nd day of the month, right? So this is the 8th day Sabbath, right? So so like I said, there's no such thing as a double Sabbath. That is not according to scripture. That is a man-made doctrine. And I was wanted to say that because I've seen people do that before. I've seen people say about a double Sabbath. Thank you, baby. About a double Sabbath. And there's no such thing as that, right? We just went into Numbers 29 and we went day by day from the first day up until the 7th day being the 21st day. And it did not say anything about the Saturday being a Sabbath. That is a man-made false doctrine, right?
Mhm.
So go ahead and read verse 40 through 43 real quick, Doc, and then we're gonna go to Psalms 30 and verse 6, and we're gonna close with that.
Okay, this is Leviticus 23, starting at verse 40. "And ye shall take you on the first day the boughs of goodly trees, branches of palm trees, and the boughs of thick trees, and willows of the brook. And ye shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim 7 days. And ye shall keep it a feast unto Yahweh 7 days in the year. It shall be a statute forever in your generations. Ye shall celebrate it in the 7th month. And ye shall dwell in booths 7 days. All that are Israelites born shall dwell in booths." Verse 43, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh your Elohim. And Moses declared unto the children of Israel the feast of Yahweh.
So can you give me Psalm 30 and verse 6? So we've read a couple of times, and it said the 7th that we dwell in booths for 7 days. So once again, the Feast of Tabernacles starts tomorrow morning at dawn at the rising of the sun. It will be the 15th day. And The feast goes 7 days. From the 15th to the 21st is the 7 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The seventh day. This is also the sixth day of your work week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days that I work, and the seventh is a day of rest. The seventh day is numerically it's called the eighth day because of the count, but it's numerically the 22nd day of the month. And it says for 7 days. So, like I said, it tells you that there's a double Sabbath for the seventh day and for the eighth day. That is a man-made doctrine. It is a false doctrine. You have to have 6 work days before every Sabbath. And that is Exodus 20, verse 9 and 10. 6 days do thy labor and do all thy work, and the seventh is a day of rest. The scripture is clear. The Most High is not trying to confuse anybody. He's not trying to trick us. He said what he said, and we have to receive the word for what it truly says and what it is, right? It says, sanctify them with thy truth. Thy word is true. There's only one truth. And if you cannot find it in scripture, you cannot believe it and keep it as a doctrine. And even if you have received it as a doctrine, you have to come to the point where you study to show yourself approved and let that stuff go. So if anybody tells you that, I mean, the scripture is clear. It says the first day, which is the 15th, is the Sabbath, and the 8th day is the Sabbath, the 15th and the 22nd. All Sabbaths are 8, 15, 22, and 29, which coincide with the moon phases. So if anybody tells you that it's a double Sabbath, that is not according to scripture. They are adding to the scripture. Go ahead and give me that scripture right there.
Proverbs chapter 30, verse 6, and it says, add thou not unto his words, lest he reprove thee, and thou be found a liar.
Be found what?
A liar.
So if anybody tells you that the first day is a Sabbath, which it is, if they tell you that the seventh day and the eighth day is a Sabbath, and they say it's a double Sabbath, the scripture says they are a liar. They are a liar. That's not me. That's not the brother. That's the Most High. He said if you add unto his word, he's going to reprove you, and you're going to be found to be a liar.
Absolutely.
That's the scripture. So we just wanted to come and bring some understanding. Like I said, tomorrow is the Feast of Tabernacles, and I pray that everybody has a blessed time, lifting up the name of the Most High, his word. Enjoy yourself. If you are not keeping the Feast of Tabernacles, you're missing out. And the confirmation that you're keeping the Feast of Tabernacles correctly on the 15th day is tomorrow evening when you look up. You are going to be under a full moon. If you've kept Feast of Tabernacles already and you were not under a full moon, according to scripture, you have missed the Feast of Tabernacles. You have that, Philo?
Yes, I do.
The one real quick, we down to a minute.
Okay, this is works of Philo under his special laws, and it says on the 15th day at full moon, the feast which is called the Feast of Booths is celebrated, for which the supplies of the sacrifices are more numerous.
So the 15th day under the full moon. With that, we say Shalom.
Shalom, Israel.